Good afternoon and welcome to 365 Days of Amazing Stories with Theo Mayer. Here we are today, 135, and I am beginning the stories of 1001 Arabian Nights. Now, you might remember that Shahryar, the Sultan, here he was with his, rather unreasonable request, and it wasn't even a request, demand that he marry a woman every day, and by the next morning he would have her killed. And so the Grand Vizier was super surprised when Scheherazade, his daughter, had come to him and asked that she be the next wife of the Sultan. And you can imagine how distraught he was. But she was so determined that she went through it. And Shahryar, he was just amazed that the Grand Vizier was willing to, present his daughter as his next wife. But the Grand Vizier, he couldn't stop Scheherazade from going ahead with her plan. He felt that he just couldn't refuse her. So it was settled, and Scheherazade made that arrangement with her sister, Dinarzade. And Dinarzade requested that story early in the morning. The Sultan agreed to hear the story of Scheherazade as the last story that Scheherazade would tell her younger sister. So here I'm going to begin with that story. The story of the merchant and the genie. Now, in that land, long, long ago, there was a merchant who was extremely wealthy. He had great sums of money. He had land and goods, and was prosperous in every way. Occasionally, he had to leave and go some distance away to tend to his affairs. And at one point, he gathered together a small, wallet, small little bag of dates, to take a journey across the desert to one of these places where he had to do business. It was hot and dry traveling across the desert to this other place, and so there was no food that you could get along the way. So that's why he took, dates, which lasted in that kind of environment and in a small little bag without any problem at all. So off he goes on his horse, and he gets to this other place and takes care of what he needs to do, and then he turns the horse round and heads for home. And the heat that day was so great as he was coming back that he decided to stop under a tree that he could see just a little ways off. And he rode to that tree. It was a big walnut tree. There were some other trees nearby. And close to the walnut tree was a beautiful fountain with clear water running into it. So he stopped here and tied his horse to a branch of the tree and got down and sat down leaning against the fountain. And he took out his little bag of dates and he began to eat the dates. Now, most of you have eaten dates and know that in the center of a date is a pit or a stone. And it's long and narrow and hard. And the merchant, as he was eating the dates, the pits he would just throw from one side to the other. And when he had finished eating, he got up and he washed his face and he washed his hands. And as he was standing there, he suddenly saw in the distance coming toward him this cloud approaching very quickly, and he knew at that point that it must be a genie. And it got close, and then the cloud stopped, and standing close by to him was a huge genie that was white with rage. He took a scimitar that he had and raised over his head and began rushing toward the merchant, saying, "I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you." And the merchant was shocked by this genie, not only by the way he was behaving, but by his words. And the merchant said, "Please, please, I beg you, have mercy on me. What have I done? I'm going to kill you like you have killed my son." And the merchant said, "How can I have killed your son? I've never met him. I do not know who he is. How could I have possibly have hurt your son?" The genie said, "Oh, did you not come here on your horse and sit down by this fountain?" "Yes, I did," said the merchant. "And do you not take out a bag of dates? And did you not begin to eat those dates?" "Yes, it is true that I did that," said the merchant. "And did you not take the pits, the stones, and begin to throw them from right to left?" "Yes, I did," said the merchant. "Well, as you were throwing your pits around so randomly and so recklessly, one of them hit my son in the eye, and he has perished. And so for that, I am going to kill you." And at this, the genie raised his scimitar again. He lifted the merchant up off the ground by his arm, threw him down, and we'll leave the story there because Scheherazade did. She turned to Nirzeda and said, "I must stop here, for it is getting late, and surely the Sultan must tend to his affairs. But I will gladly tell you the end of the story, which is more marvelous than the beginning, if the Sultan would allow me to live another day." Well, the Sultan thought to himself. He had been enjoying the story, listening to it with pleasure, and he thought to himself, "Sure, I would like to listen to the end of that story, and I can kill her when she's finished with it." So he allowed Scheherazade to live that day. Tell the story the next. Now, the Sultan, when he appeared that morning to council, was greeted by the Grand Vizier, who had been reluctant to even get up in the morning, for he was so concerned by the news that he expected to hear from the Sultan that morning, that he would have to kill his own daughter. But this did not happen. Scheherazade was going to live another day. Well, we'll leave this all here, and we'll find out what happens in the story tomorrow. Okay? We'll also find out, does Scheherazade live another day past the next? Okay. Have a good rest of your day, and come back tomorrow to hear what's next with 1001 Arabian Nights.